Welcome to WrestleWolf. This is AEW's All Out in Review. It's a long title. I came up with it on the spot. I am Damian Gibson, and joining me, as always, is the man, the mystery, the disappointed enigma. It's Matthew.
I feel like I am increasingly becoming the AEW Grinch. But I think like if we were to put these things on like I'm all in on this or I'm all out, I am all out on All Out. There's my pun. There it is. I'll repeat it constantly as we go through the matches on this pay-per-view.
There has to be like a couple of like intense guys from Jersey who have a YouTube wrestling channel who like that's their I'm all in, bro. I'm all out, bro. You know, that's their signature for the channel.
Yeah, I like it. I wish we had have thought of it before those two imaginary guys.
It's actually pretty good. Well, maybe they'll revisit as the episode goes on.
Don't laugh. This isn't an episode for happiness.
I need to. I haven't since yesterday, since I watched this pile of garbage that came through my TV screen. Now, look, don't turn off straight away. If you enjoyed this, there are parts of this pay-per-view that I really enjoyed quite a bit, but just before we get into it match by match, I had a moment. So I started watching it about 7:30 last night, Sunday, like a Australian Eastern Standard Time, whatever. And the thing went for like almost 4 hours. So I reckon it was at about the 2-hour mark. This was just before the Matt Hardy Sammy Guevara match as well, which really hit the button on how I was feeling, where I was like, I don't know if this is very good. Like actually kind of said it out loud to myself, which I tend to do a lot. I tend to recount a lot of stories where I'm talking to myself while I'm watching wrestling, which is not a good sign. There was just something, like you said to me before we started recording, that like Dynamite was a really good sort of precursor to what happened at the pay-per-view, and it's weird to think that like a wrestling promotion can be in or out of form, but that's what this feels like, that like there is a really good wrestling team, for want of a better term, going around in AEW, and the last sort of 3 weeks they've hit a form slump. And
I feel like this is it's sort of like when like the Brooklyn Nets got like Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce from the Celtics, and everyone was like, oh shit, the Brooklyn Nets are about to like absolutely contend. The Celtics just got ripped off. This is going to be amazing. And then it turned out they were not up to form, barely played for the year, and the Brooklyn Nets were absolute hot garbage, and the picks that they traded unprotected to the Celtics were really valuable. Sorry, I'm just trying to make myself think of as a Celtics fan, something that made me really happy, because nothing on this pay-per-view matched that one.
Yeah, should we just get into it?
Let's get into it. I didn't watch the buy-in. I don't watch pre-shows because 4 hours of shit wrestling is enough for me.
Yeah, all right. Like, I know we're both disappointed, but let's not go full wrestling Twitter like what I read this morning. I mean, there was some over the top reactions to this pay-per-view this morning of like, AEW have just killed themselves. You're like, all right, okay, relax. You know, like, I mean, it is an interesting time to drop the ball when the head of your competitor the day before or 2 days before has basically unveiled himself as fucking, you know, Senator Palpatine, you know, the emperor of wrestling.
Oh yeah, no. Let's not overreact about AEW. Says the man who then goes to compare Vince McMahon to the evilest movie character of all time.
Well, in the wrestling universe, who's closest to the emperor? It's Vince,
the master in the Dungeon of Doom. Obvious.
Oh, that's true. But that's kayfabe wrestling. This is real wrestling. Come on,
I'm kayfabe only.
Kayfabe only, Matt. That could be a new nickname. Anyway, Vince kind of handed an opportunity on a platter to AEW, and they just smacked it out of his hands.
Yeah.
So we're back at parody. Anyway, the first match, which wasn't going to be on the show, was on the pre-show, and then I think because of the power that Matt and myself wield, TK, who listened to the podcast, put it back on the pay-per-view. That's the only explanation I've got for it. It was a cinematic match, a tooth and nail match between, I think might be Matt's favourite wrestler, Dr. Britt Baker.
And potentially my
his
other
new
favourite
wrestler, Big Swole. I enjoyed this. This was two women beating the shit out of each other in a dentist surgery. There were lots of little spots that I found really amusing. The spot of using Narcan or Narcan, depending on what part of the world you hail from, to get for Big Swole to be able to get the win, I thought was kind of ingenious. I was pretty happy with this as a finish for this program.
I mean, it went 10 minutes. It obviously Britt Baker is still a little bit physically limited, which is why they did the match like this. She's been injured for the last 6 months, so that's probably fair. You know, there were some really funny moments, like, you know, when Big Swole walks into the dentist office and Reba's there, and Reba asks her a name and she says Big Swole Ho, and then Reba realizes who it is and screams that she's here. Yeah. And like also, you know, Reba yelling. Reba really had a good match for herself here, but yelling "Don't touch my Dr. Baker" as
yeah, but also why she was doing a different accent. Like she was doing like a kind of Mrs. Doubtfire type accent when she was on reception. I also love the idea that like Reba, who was the hair and makeup woman at AEW, is now working for Dr. Britt Baker as a dental assistant. Is that her job?
I just thought Swole's new theme song, first of all, is so tailor-made for crowds to cheer. And I think I said this to you while I was watching it, that like, as long as her creative stays at the level it's at, really, like she will be over like Becky Lynch, but without the shit creative. Like she is female Stone Cold Steve Austin. She's such a badass. She's not big, but she looks tough as hell, and she's got the most incredible attitude. And Britt Baker hopefully will be women's champion at some point soon, because she is so wonderful and so funny and so hateable. That said, essentially the match itself here, I could have basically done without. It's a 10-minute match, and about 8 minutes of it are really not hyper, just not really consequential at all.
Yeah, it probably could have been 5. I think if you condense this down into 5 minutes, you would have had something really great. But I still enjoyed this. I liked Reba grabbing the mouthwash tap thing and saying hello to Mrs. Thirsty, was it? Something like that?
I think it was Mrs. Thirsty. I think it didn't get... Maybe because it was already filmed and it was already a pre-show match until, 2 days or 3 days ago or something. I feel like it didn't get the same amount of creative respect as basically every other cinematic match has. It's, maybe it's not as bad as I found the Braun Strowman Bray Wyatt one to be, but it's certainly not on the Stadium Stampede Firefly Funhouse level.
I think there is another rung of that ladder, and I think it's the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Like that's like it's a bit more fun. It's a bit more Bruce Pritchard, like wacky races kind of thing. And that's what this felt like, that it was like you're right. Like I don't think it's like the best cinematic match we've seen by any stretch, but it's definitely not at the Swamp theme
No,
match
absolutely.
level.
And I forgot about Money in the Bank. It is really at that same. Like, I think I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Money in the Bank, to be honest. But
I don't know, man. Oscar was. I loved Oscar and Otis. I mean, they were the two who won, but they were the breakout. Like they just. I might actually watch that again tonight. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to watch it again.
I'm not going to do that.
I just loved Oscar in that match so much. It was just
I'm going to join the TNA app and I'm going to watch some Impact from 2009. That's what I'm going to do.
They charge They charge the same as WWE Network. I was going to sign up to Impact, and then they're charging $10 for one show.
Yeah, but you can watch Hardcore Justice from 2010. That's the EV 2.0 because they can't call them ECW originals. Extreme Violence 2.
I don't know. I'll think about it. I mean, I've already got 3 wrestling networks that I subscribe to. I don't know if I really need a 4th.
Get rid of
and I really want to support Ring of Honor. And now NWA are starting to do one-off pay-per-views as well. So I do only have so much money. I know the rumors are that I have unlimited amounts of money, but I don't.
Well, subscribe to this show and rate us, and eventually
please,
one day we might monetize it.
Get a sponsor, yeah.
You know, just for men, or what manscaping's the big one at the moment. That it seems every podcast I'm listening to is about manscaping.
Yeah, that would be an interesting read between the two of us. Anyway, Big Swole got the win. And I think that's probably right as far as storytelling is concerned. Remember, the original concept of this podcast was to talk about the storytelling in these wrestling shows? It's kind of gone out the window.
I don't remember that at all. Anyway, so that would be why, maybe.
That was my original conceit. I don't know. I may not have passed it on to you. But anyway, I thought this started okay. But it probably could have stayed on the pre-show and it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, you know? But I don't know. There's a part of me that sort of thinks that because of the program these guys have had, they deserve maybe a bigger blow off than this. And you know, maybe they can, if Britt is starting to feel, you know, is getting close to 100%, maybe they can kick the feud off again and eventually have a blow off in front of people, because I think they probably deserve that. Yeah, I think this next match was when I started to. This is when I started to turn in the second match. So we had the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick versus Jurassic Express. And the Young Bucks weren't doing their tough guy thing as much initially in this match. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard for me to feel anything but just pure hate and rage towards the Young Bucks at the moment. I don't know. Every time I see them, I dislike them more. I mean, I like them as wrestlers, but I just want them to go full heel so I can be like, well, that's why I hate them, you know, rather than having to explain to people why I dislike the Young Bucks.
I sort of noticed they were doing this sort of bully here, like, you know, they're you know, we're the tough guys thing. When Jungle Boy got into the ring, and I was sort of a bit like, Jungle Boy's actually bigger than them. Like, physically, he's not big, but he's bigger than them, and it didn't work for me, brother. Yeah,
I suppose you could kind of maybe story that away with them being like EVPs of the company or whatever, but yeah, you're right. Like, I also don't think we got as good a wrestling in this match that you probably would have thought that you did. I mean, like, it wasn't bad, but, you know, I think we've kind of spoken about this before, that, like, there's been such a high bar, a high expectation has been raised with AEW's product that when they don't hit a 10 out of 10, you walk away quite disappointed. And I think that's probably what this match suffered from.
I think Jungle Boy really stepped it up. I was I was watching him and thinking, this kid's really, really good, and he's going to be really, really good. But really, like, there was no real story to this match. You know, it was a throwaway match. I don't have a whole lot to say about it.
No, well, me either. That's the thing. I mean, like, there isn't, you know, good or bad, there isn't a lot really to delve into as far as this match is concerned. I mean, it was a a solid 7.5 out of 10 match between two really good tag teams. Jurassic Express have lost again. I mean, I can't remember the last time these guys won anything significant. And I know that they're young and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I would like to see them win something at some point. And there wasn't even really, what was there any point to...
Not that I could...
for for the Young Bucks to be put over on... Anyway. Oh, man. God, it doesn't get any better. We we move on to the 21-man Casino Royale. And, Taz was on commentary for this, so that's something. Let me try and explain. I mean, you guys have probably watched this anyway, but essentially there were 21 wrestlers, 4 sets of 5 that would pick a suite from a card deck. And then when that suite was called, those 5 wrestlers would go to the ring. And then there was one left over who was obviously going to be the one guest, wrestler or the, surprise contestant, blah, 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 blah. I thought there was a lot more. So my first disappointment was realizing that there was only one new wrestler appearing in the match and this is probably my fault because I hadn't looked into it. I just convinced myself that there were 7 or 8 surprise entrants happening.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that as well. I thought there would certainly be maybe one in every round of people coming in.
Yeah, which there was not. Unless you count Will Hobbs as a surprise entrance.
I don't.
And these are the kind of, I try not to be. These guys work their... you just got to look at them to see that they work their ass off day in, day out outside of wrestling. The amount of time they spend in the gym and all that kind of stuff. So I always feel bad just sort of dismissing people. But we weren't really dealing with a great talent in this match as well. There's some people in there, like the Lucha Brothers were in there who I love. But, look, I hate to say this, and I know a lot of people really like him. As soon as I see Christopher Daniels in anything, I'm out.
Yeah, it's
just anything to do with SCU. I'm like, well, this is shit because SCU is.
I'm a big fan of Scorpio Sky. I think Scorpio Sky is really good, but I don't need old man Christopher Daniels. I don't think anyone does, and I think when you've got the whole thing where you've got 21 entrants and the last entrance is a Joker wild card, you sort of need to deliver with who that's going to be. Whether it's someone who is, you've set up a surprise, right? And you do need to pay that off, whether it's a big name, whether it's someone who is going to be a blue chipper, that you really want to push. Had it have been Jeff Cobb at 21, I would have been like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Jeff Cobb's here. Jeff Cobb's going to do cool things. Had it have been Davey Boy Smith Jr., had it have been Bandito, had it have been Rusev, had it have been, there are so many sort of names. Rusev is obviously a bigger name than Bandito, but
had it have been Warhorse,
yes.
Had it have been Danhausen.
Well, exactly. Had it have just...
if it was Danhausen, I would have fucking lost my mind.
And that would have been saying, hey, we got a long-term story here. It was Evan Bourne who then proceeded to have one of the all-time embarrassing botches I've ever seen.
Yeah. There's a lot of, with all the negative talk around this pay-per-view, especially on wrestling Twitter, Matt Sydal, which is his AEW name, or Evan Bourne from WWE, who I really liked in WWE and felt like he didn't get, surprise, surprise, a good enough run in WWE. He made a mistake. This is a mistake. It's a botch, but, you can't. You just had to feel sorry. I felt sorry for him, but also at the same time was like, fuck, man, like, this pay-per-view is really important to AEW. You couldn't have picked a worse time to make this match look. It already doesn't look great, and then you're the big surprise entrant, and you come out and make this mistake right now. God damn it, no. There's so much in this. Like, what was going? I know this would have annoyed you. Sean Spears being Sean Spears. What? So he comes out, doesn't enter the ring. Okay, that's, smart guy behavior. He goes over to the commentary booth. He has a chat to them. Okay, cool, smart ass heel behavior. Because he's painting himself as like this genius.
And makes a big deal about, why would you go straight to the ring? Why would you,
Yeah. And then goes and does exactly that.
Like, why wouldn't he wait until there was two people left or one person left? Like, it just, he saved himself about 35 seconds.
It was so dumb. It was so dumb. It was like, I couldn't. I was driving me insane. There's the Darby Allin spot where I'm pretty, for 2 minutes I thought Darby Allin was dead.
Like, that was a cool idea. It was just so poorly done. Shoving him in a bag full of tacks and powerbombing him is a disgusting thing that, like, you're like, oh, wow, haven't seen that before. Powerbombing him onto the back of his head onto concrete is not so cool.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, like, yes, it's a mistake. No one's purposely, there's no Nia Jax in this match. No one's purposely trying to hurt their competitors. It's not Hulk Hogan. But I'm on fire today, man. I'm on a rampage. I just, again, it looked, I saw someone on Twitter talking about something that's coming up later on in the pay-per-view. As in, it looked B-grade indie bad, a lot of this stuff, and I think that's a really good description. Really did. It would, like, for some reason, a lot of this stuff, AEW looked like a second-rate promotion, and I think for a lot of us, like, we're barracking for them so hard. It is fanatical. It is this, like, cult almost, because we're so sick of the opposition and their bullshit. That, these guys have come along and it's like, we're for the wrestlers and for the fans, and we're all like, yeah. So when they get an opportunity like this and all this stuff's happening, it's so disappointing. And, I can understand why that turns into anger and people lashing out on Twitter and stuff. But the problems in this match are more mistakes, really.
I think there's pretty average creative in this match, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I was going to jump into that next. It's like, but there are still a lot of things happening in here that. Do you want to tell? Do you want to
look? I think the sort of the very the very finish of this match. Like, I think it's fine to have a bunch of stories. It was great to see Brian Cage eliminate Billy Gunn. Why Billy was in the match at all, I don't know. There was no reason for him to be there. Not everyone needs a reason, I guess. But, no one was like, fuck, Billy Gunn could challenge for the world title. I hope no one was like that. Having the finish be Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer and Jake Roberts sort of there's been no work done to say that Eddie Kingston hates snakes before this. The commentators try and cover it up, but also, like, fair enough that Eddie Kingston might be scared of snakes. Is he scared of old men holding bags in a not very threatening manner relatively far away from him?
It looked like
because it did. And like, having Lance Archer win, I don't really want to see, as I said to you straight after, I'm not up for seeing Lance Archer versus Jon Moxley. And I'm certainly not up for an 8-week build of Jon Moxley rambling and slurring while Jake Roberts says increasingly perplexing things, and Lance Archer stands there and breathes heavily and rubs his hands together. Like, I don't care about that. I don't want to see that. I'm not sure anyone wants to see that at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned that on our Dynamite show this week, like when we were doing predictions. I predicted Nick Aldis. Wouldn't have that been nice, guys? So, but I did mention Lance Archer, and we kind of talked ourselves off that ledge. It's like, oh well, that won't happen. That this soon, he already had that match against John Moxley only a few months ago, and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Was
it
a
was
few
against
months ago?
Cody.
It'd be like 4 or
yeah.
5 months ago now.
It
was against Cody. My bad. The team.
Nah.
Was it? He didn't
was
get
TNT. It was the first big build, and then he sort of disappeared.
Right.
But it's bad booking to have big men win battle royales, because battle royales are the easiest thing for big men to lose with absolutely no repercussion. Like, you just have 5 people gang up on them and throw them out. No one's like, oh, Lance Archer's weak. They're like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, battle royales are good booking of a battle royale has someone using their brains to win in an exciting manner. This did not have any of that, unless you count waving a snake bag at someone as using their brains.
The air of this match was sucked out as soon as Matt Sydal botched that spot, and that's a lot. That's like a lot of responsibility to put on the poor guy's shoulders. And I know he's sort of been in and out of wrestling recently as well, sort of umming and ahhing about whether he wants to go on. And so, like, this is like, it's just awful. This is awful timing. So he's obviously made the decision, like, yep, this is my shot to get back in there, and blah blah. But yeah, and then there was the Darby Allin spot. There was the thing that also annoyed, and the fact that Lance Archer won, and I was like, oh, I'm just not interested in that. I may have been slightly more interested in it if MJF had won the championship, maybe.
See,
but even then, I just, it's like, well, whoever wins that championship match is going to dispense of Lance Archer pretty quickly, right? Like, no, I don't think anyone's believing that
as soon as Lance Archer won, I had a feeling in my stomach that was not so good about Mox MJF, because Lance Archer's in no way becoming like a scary face, in no way, and the way he won showed that that's not on the cards for him, which meant that, like, the program between scary evil monster Lance Archer and super heel MJF is about as cold a program as you could get. Like, and I just was disappointed. Yeah.
Well, we can probably move on from this pretty quickly. The only other thing, I just wanted to make one more point about it. The thing that also frustrated me as well as I was watching it, as far as the booking was concerned, was one, you had these 4 groups of 5, but didn't really do anything with them. Like, basically everyone came to the ring, and it wasn't until all 21 of them were in the ring that people started getting eliminated. I know there were a couple beforehand, but so that you, like, from your own standpoint, you're making it really difficult for yourselves, because you've got to try and book a match where there's 21 giant men in a ring. It's bound to have things go wrong when that. You could see that, like, Rey Fenix had to push someone out of the way to do a certain spinning kick off the top rope. It was just the same sort of thing we were talking about with Dynamite this week, where it felt like things had been rushed and not planned. It feels like with AEW, things are usually kind of meticulously planned, and this match didn't feel like that. And also, when you've got people like, SCU and the Gun Club in there, it just feels like those spots could be utilized by, like, Brian Pillman Jr. Like, I know the joke for me would be to say Warhorse or Danhausen or whatever, but, like, there's people on the roster who I much more want to see. You know what I mean? Like, if Brian Pillman came out in the last group, like, oh, holy shit, maybe Pillman's going to get a push. You know what I mean? There were little things that you could have done with your own people that would have made it much more interesting, of just like, SCU, like, oh, well, these guys aren't fucking winning, are they? Or the Gun Club, or, I just, that really frustrated me, that there is all this young talent on the on the roster. And Darby Allin and Ricky Starks were in that match as well, and they didn't get much of a run either, and that was something that we were both looking forward to. And I don't know. It's just weird, man. I don't have an explanation for it either.
Like, it was just bad booking.
Yeah, it's really strange. I don't know. I don't understand how you can get it so right for so long, and then anyway. And it gets worse because the next match is the Broken Rules match, and this isn't even. I mean, the things that this is legitimate heat for the company on the back of this match and decisions that were made because of it. And all legitimate. I can't, I know I'm a paid AEW shill, I'm a fanboy, I'm a soy boy, whatever you want to call me on Twitter, but like I can't stick up for this. So I'll just quickly describe it for anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm sure everyone has. There was a spot that, if it had come off, would have been pretty amazing, but Matt and Sammy came off a cherry picker through a table that wasn't placed correctly on the concrete out on the concourse at Daly's place. Matt's head and shoulders hit the concrete extremely hard. He was knocked out on impact. And then kind of chaos ensued, I think it's probably fair to say. I mean, you've got a fairly green wrestler in Sammy out there. You've got a fairly green ref in Audrey Edwards out there as well. Matt Hardy is, like, when he came to, is telling people to, he's trying to get up and walk, but he's moving sideways. It was pretty sickening to watch, actually. His face was blue for a bit until colour came back into it, so he's obviously lost some oxygen to his brain. I understand that he's the elder statesman out there and that he was probably calling the match, but, just someone had to come in and stop it, which did happen. The match was stopped, and then Matt's obviously come to a little bit more, and they've decided to press on because they've got time to fill or something. I don't know, even though it's a pay-per-view on a streaming service that was going for 4 hours anyway. I don't think anyone would have held it against them if they had stopped the match, because everyone had seen what had happened. And not only did they press on, they then climbed up a scaffolding, and I don't know if any of this was planned, or it must have been, because the cardboard boxes
they obviously rushed it, and like you could tell for the rest of the pay-per-view that they had issues with timing because of this.
But I don't understand did you get told that it was going to be like a 3 hour and 50-minute pay-per-view when you bought it? I mean, I wasn't. I don't think anyone, you're missing 10 minutes of a pay-per-view. Like, who cares? But I thought those days of having like restricted cable time were over because we're using the internet. It's infinite. It doesn't matter. Like, and then just on top of that, so they climbed up this scaffolding for some reason. Sammy took a very sort of limp, but I mean, it's a huge bump, but I mean, Matt Hardy could barely understand. He had no idea he wasn't cognitive. He didn't know what he was doing. So he kind of pushed Sammy, and Sammy just sort of jumped off this scaffolding and then dislocated his shoulder in the process. So like the whole thing was a fucking debacle. And I felt a bit off and gross. And it was hard for me to get back into the pay-per-view after that. Like, I don't want to be melodramatic, but I was just like, I was kind of shocked at what I'd seen initially because it was a sickening thing. And then I was like, oh, did AEW just fuck up then?
And like, they've said since that he had concussion tests and all that kind of stuff. I don't think you can't have proper concussion tests in that amount of time, and Matt Hardy's an older guy at this point who has a lot of miles on his body. I don't have a whole lot I want to say about it other than they shouldn't have kept going with this match.
Nah, man. It's really poor form. And then there's been almost, it's WWE-esque in the sense of like, you know, Tony Khan saying one thing, but then like journos are getting a different story from Matt's wife, and you know, it's just, you know, at least if you do fuck up, and this has been the one thing that I've kind of enjoyed about AEW so far, is that when things go wrong, they put their hand up and say, yeah, we fucked up, sorry, you know, we'll do better next time, or we've listened to you guys and we'll do this and blah blah. So I hope that they do, because there's going to be a lot of feedback out of this pay-per-view, and I hope they take it all on board. But most importantly is this, you know, like, I think AEW, or even WWE's audience, I think everyone's educated enough to know that, like, we don't want wrestlers putting themselves through this for our entertainment, no matter how much you want to see the match. Yeah. So, Jesus. Okay, this next one is good. We had the AEW Women's World Championship match. Hikaru Shida, who was the AEW champion, versus NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa. This match was good wrestling.
This was by far the best match on the card. Like, you could sometimes tell that they weren't that familiar with each other, but like, Rosa is so charismatic, and like, obviously there's something, you know, like she I'm assuming that was it as far as her appearing on AEW for now. But like, couldn't they have maybe figured something out? Like, this might have been a good opportunity to pull the trigger, and just do something really unexpected and different, and just have Rosa win, and, you know, pay her for a, you know, 10, you know, she would be at most wrestling twice a week, if she was, you know, with AEW and NWA, like, and they obviously have a good relationship. It was good exposure for NWA, and it would have been great for the women's division in AEW, because she is about as ready as you can get.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you've said there. You know, I would have been, I don't know. I mean, I love NWA, so I don't really want them to lose Rosa, but I mean, if she's a dual champion, that would have been really cool as well. The possibility of NWA and AEW working together isn't dead because Rosa didn't win this match. Like, you know, it's still very much open. And the fact that, you know, hearing Billy Corgan talking on an AEW pay-per-view was like, oh, okay, I know it was the same as what was used on Dynamite, but it's still like, this is cool. Like, there's NWA footage being used on AEW and stuff. So I think that channel is open for both companies to do stuff, and that's cool. And also, like, you know, Rosa losing, you know, Sheeta getting this win over Rosa makes Sheeta look even more legitimate, you know?
Yeah, but also, wouldn't it have been exceptionally cool to see, you know, Rosa as this sort of arrogant, shit-talking heel, and, you know, Big Swole just chasing her down?
Yeah, that
could have been a good couple of months.
Yeah, or Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker, or, you know, like any, you know, Penelope Ford or Chris Statlander when she comes back. I mean, like, yeah, she would work well with any of those ladies. But I secretly kind of wanted to stay in NWA, man, because
she can do both.
I really love NWA, but I want them to kind of be their own thing as well. I don't want them to just sort of be like a subsidiary of AEW, even though that would be cool as well. But this match yeah, you're right. It probably took a little bit for them to warm up with each other, but by the end of the match, I mean, Thunder Rosa just looked $1,000,000. She looked amazing in this match. It probably made Sheeta look a little bit amateurish at times in comparison, which is saying something, because Sheeta has probably been the A standard for the women on AEW so far as in-ring is concerned. So, yeah, this alleviated, I mean, just it's such a hard, it's so hard for these girls to come on after that Matt and Sammy mess as well, you know, like, I mean, whether it was filmed that way or not, I don't know, but but yeah, you're right. I hope we see more of Thunder Rosa in AEW. But yeah, this was the point of the night, and this next little promo where I was happy, and then things started to go downhill again. So Kip Sabian did it. He's done a promo, Matt, and I enjoyed it.
You were happy about this, were you?
Yeah, I
Are you excited to find out who his best man's going to be?
Yeah. This
could it not have been? If it's going to be someone good, why weren't they the 21st person in?
Well, because usually they, like this is sort of like the playbook of like they'll keep like another, surprise for the.
Is it a surprise on the level of Evan Bourne? Are we going to get Mike Bennett? Is that our?
No, Mike Bennett's on a pay-per-view for NWA.
Oh Jesus!
So
Christ.
he's going up against Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Championship. World's Championship.
Wow.
What
that title must mean if Mike Bennett's going up for it.
Hey, enough of that. We're all in a bad mood, all right? There's no need to lash out at NWA. It's not NWA's fault that this happened. I love this bullshit. You know that I love this kind of soapy bullshit, and I want to see, one, we're getting a wedding, so that's amazing. And two, we're going to find out who Kip Sabian's best man is. I am slightly worried it might be Marty Scurll.
It's not going to be Marty.
You don't reckon?
No.
They're friends.
Yeah, I think he's sitting in the... He's not coming back for a little while, would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I hope it's not. I hope it's someone fun. Like, I hope it's,
Mike Bennett.
Well, look, Mike Bennett would be a better result than the villain. Yeah, I mean, it'd be boring, but...
I'm sorry. That you can't... yes, Mike Bennett would be a better result than the actual Zodiac Killer coming out. But it's for a different reason.
Imagine
like
that.
In it,
what
a
if
year ago, Mike Bennett would not have been a better decision than Marty Scurll.
What if it's like O.J. Simpson or something?
I mean, AEW's already had Mike Tyson. Why not bring in OJ?
That's what I was going to say. I know it sounds like I'm drinking scotch here, but it's just water. Oh, man, I've got so much to say about this next match, and none of it's good. We've got the 8-man grudge match that built up 2 weeks ago. The Dork Order. That's not a bad nickname. The Dark Order, the Exalted One, Brody Lee, Stu Grayson, Evil Uno and Colt Cabana versus the Natural Nightmares, accompanied by Brandy Rose and Ali. Like, I'm just, oh god, even calling out their names makes me annoyed. Matt Cardona, and Scorpio Sky. I don't really care what happened in this match. I just want to talk about... Well, actually, I'll ask you what you think first, and then I'll launch.
So I had two sort of significant thoughts while I was watching this. The first was Cody lost the belt 3 weeks ago. Wouldn't it have been better to like have some storyline where Dark Order people were challenging Cody and Ben? Like, it was obvious that this was leading up to All Out, where then Brody trucked Cody and that really exciting match happened at All Out. Like, if this is what you're leading to for your biggest pay-per-view of the year, where that storyline, this is the sort of the second beat of that storyline. Like, Cody Rhodes wasn't on this pay-per-view, which, is weird, because he's probably the biggest. Well, he's the in many ways the face of AEW, and he's also the best at creating a story that you really, really care about. And they could have built a really good Dark Order. Brody Lee's the big boss that is waiting for Cody, and they've beaten Cody down. And it's not just random people beating Cody down. It's the Dark Order. And instead to have it be a sort of weird throwaway match with a bunch of the sort of, I guess, super friends, Jace, and is weird. And also, they resold this story that I completely forgot happened. That QT Marshall did Diamond Dallas Page's bang diamond symbol and then went to do the diamond cutter, and they're like, oh, Diamond Dallas Page gave QT Marshall the diamond cutter. Does QT Marshall have like photos of Cody murdering a baby? Like, why does he have that storyline, which is a crap story anyway, but like, surely you would give it to someone that you're like, hey, this guy's like an up and coming talent, but just needs a bit of like little bit of a storyline, little bit of help somewhere to to get over. And why is QT Marshall in this match? Why is QT Marshall in this pay per view? Like, I don't understand it. And it made me not care about anything. Like, I was into this Dark Order storyline, and now I'm not.
Yeah. This match was, I mean, as far as the wrestling is concerned, fine. The Colt Cabana, I mean, to me, and I kind of talk about this quite a bit with Dustin and Brandy, but it just feels like nepotism to me. I mean, like where this match is placed on just in the running order, like this is on after Sheeta and Rosa. What the fuck? Are you serious? I mean, it would be, if I was booking it, it'd be lucky to make the pre-show. You know what I mean? I understand Brody Lee's in there. I understand it's the TNT belt. But why is Brody Lee not defending that belt on his own against Matt Cardona? I could have understood that. I could have been like, okay, cool. Cardona he wants to avenge. He's Cody's best mate. He's come down. He challenges Brody Lee. They have a match. Cool. I'm into that. Everyone else, why are they there?
Well, and this match just existed to create a reason for Dustin Rhodes to go against Brody Lee for the TNT Championship on Wednesday night, which they already had that reason. Like, isn't it so the Super Friends won, and that's sort of the end of it. And now Dustin Rhodes is now the storyline isn't now like, oh, Dustin Rhodes, has to avenge and then eventually puts together the team that defeats Brody Lee. Brody Lee beat up Cody and Brandy. Now they've won and avenged that loss, I guess, and now Dustin gets a chance for the belt, which, like, I don't care about anymore. I could have cared about that. You could have made it cool. And his promo after this match where he's sort of saying like, oh, it's been so long since I've had a chance at a belt. Like, they could have made that a story. Like, this just seems to be
anyone
such bizarre booking, such inexplicably bizarre booking.
Not to be an arsehole, but is anyone tuning into Dynamite to watch Brody Lee versus Goldust? Like 50-year-old Goldust, I mean, like, it's obviously like, rewarding good hard work. I think we're going to find out that training around they're not the company and all that kind of thing and blah blah. But yeah, I mean, he is, but I just, again, when you've got people like Ricky
and he's still great in the ring.
Allen, but to say the same names every time, Brian Pillman Jr., Warhorse, that you could. As far as I know, he's still on the books somehow. But no, I mean, legitimately, there are people like Cardona probably has more of a reason to be in that title picture than Dustin, right? Like, I would see him as a bigger draw than. But anyway, we have to sit through this, like, dark match, AEW dark match on a pay-per-view because of the people who are involved, and it's on after the women's title match when it's already been a pretty terrible pay-per-view anyway. And it's like, but don't worry, coming up next, we've got Dustin Rhodes in a weird fucking storyline that no one really cares about. And also, Colt Cabana was made to look like a dick again in this match where it's just like, I know what's happening. It's going to be this weird, like, the breaking of Colt Cabana or like the redemption of Colt Cabana, and I'm kind of into that. Maybe he somehow gets in the TNT title picture this week on Dynamite, or I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'm trying to be optimistic and silver line here, but And also, I'm not going to let this pass, bad boy. This was the match where you, like, seriously, I mean, I actually tweeted at Brandy Rose this morning about this because she was like, hey guys, what did you think about last night? And I was like, well, let me tell you what I think, Brandy. I think Jim Ross needs to be retired from commentary today, not in a couple of weeks, not after he's had a bit of a chat with one of the female wrestlers. I'm not saying fired, I'm not out for blood. I'm just saying he needs to be off commentary for the good of the product, for the good of the female wrestlers. You know, I mean, when Anna Jay goes back and watches that and hears this like lecherous old man going, did Anna Jay just have a wardrobe malfunction or was that just wishful thinking? You know, you'd just be like, oh, like I know most people are probably like, oh, this is Jim. But when I don't, you know, it's weird because in everyday life, like, you know, like I'm a ally of feminist ideas and ideology, but I don't usually jump to the front in these kind of things. And it's just like with this, you know, because my attitude is like, well, you know, I'm a man, I shouldn't really be talking about these issues. But no one else does with JR on this, you know what I mean? It's like, for fuck's sake. Well, this one is, yeah. But it's just like fucking.
Well, I think this one
serious?
definitely.
Like, I mean, he was bad.
He
was bad all night as well. There was another thing that I was going to say about the cinematic match. Why was there commentary? Anyway, we've already gone through that. There was just another thing of like, well, this is a confused decision. But he just needs to be. He just needs to be resigned. He just needs to be taken off the desk, man. And if we get to Dynamite on Wednesday and there he is, you know, with his little hat doing the same shit, you know, or like he doesn't do it this week and then slowly it just creeps back, like that behavior just creeps back onto the telecast. Like it detracts from my enjoyment of the product. Sorry, man. I just had to. He's a grown man. How does he not know that this stuff's gross? You know what I mean? Someone pointed out on Twitter today,
obviously.
Like, when Jerry, because you know all the dickheads were coming out and going, "Oh well, you know Jerry the King used to do this 20 years ago during the Attitude Era, and everyone loved it." Like, well, yeah, one, things change, and two, JR at that time, he would be the one that would pull up Jerry and be like, "Oh God, that's disgusting! Don't say that." You know, it's just weird that like. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. I'm actually interested to see what you think of this match because I don't really know. I still don't really know what I think of it. We had the Tag Team Championship match between the champs, Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega versus FTR with Tully Blanchard in their corner. I'm going to buy an FTR jacket, by the way, at some point. It's just, you know, they just get cooler every week that they walk out. What did you think of this match? I don't know what I think.
I thought it was not. I thought the match was fine. I think the story was the swerve being, well, Kenny turns heel and Page is not, and FTR are essentially irrelevant to their own championship win. That's not the story they're telling. That's not the story they've been telling. And like, good stories aren't built on, what a shock. Like, this is, you know, a crazy end of the episode thriller that, you know, like it's not serial, you know, 1940s Batman where like he goes over the cliff and then, you know, the next episode he's jumped out of the car and he's fine and thank God, you know, that I had to just see that. Like, the story they were building was that Hangman was being manipulated, was, you know, sort of losing his shit, was drinking too much, was a total mess. And now the story is, well, Kenny's gone mental and like, you know, it, like I'm a fan. I want Kenny Omega to be a heel. I just think you should tell the story that you're telling, and and not mix up things. Like, there were better ways to do that. Where's Hangman now? Like, I don't know what this did for him, and he needs, he was someone who was really, really hot a month, 2 months ago. Now he's in just this exceptionally strange place. Like, having him isolated from the Elite is a great decision. Having this be a weird, the Elite turning heel, like Kenny says to the Young Bucks, get in the car, come with, you can't think about it, blah, 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 and then the Young Bucks don't get it. Like, are we going to get, we are going to get, obviously, a few weeks of the Elite slowly turning heel. But, like, the Young Bucks kicked Hangman out of the Elite. Like, they were, their story is that they're bad guys. Like, it's just, it just is so muddled and so nonsensical that it completely eliminated the match for me. Like, I just was left so confused by the decision. 2 weeks ago, Hangman was holding the Young Bucks' legs to stop them from getting in the title match. Like, it just doesn't. It's just confusing. They just seem to be giving everyone every trait rather than like.
Why is Kenny
just telling a simple
because
good story?
They lost the belts? Wouldn't it make more sense for Hangman to come out all angry and drunk? Because that's been the recurring story and the thing that that Kenny and the Bucks have been upset about is that he's drinking, right? Like, it's been this sort of underlying thing of like, oh, well, the thing that all those fans, all those yobbos out there love you for, that's not what we love, because we're Christian AF, essentially, kind of thing. Like, but then there's no payoff to that in this. I mean, there probably will be at some point when it gets pointed out to them and they like rebook things to fix things up, which seems to be what AEW do really well. But when Kenny lost it, because he's like he storms out of the building, and I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? Because they followed him out of the stadium, like you were saying, out to the car, and I was legitimately like, yes, because I watch a lot of wrestling, I knew this was probably going to happen tonight, but I don't know as a fan who's following this story, I don't know why. Like, he doesn't have a justifiable reason as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't know. I mean, that it's that weird thing of like, oh, well, he's being a dick, so he's a heel. But it's like, he's got to have a reason. Surely. It can't just be like, oh, because I lost,
And it's, that. And I mean, Hangman, the story's been that he's sort of the weak link, and then he wasn't the weak link. He did take the loss, but only because of Kenny, basically. Kenny kneed him in the head. It just doesn't make sense that, like, the story is, well, Hangman's scared and, anxious. He doesn't want to face the Young Bucks. So instead, for some reason, he would face FTR. Like, they're not being built as this massively dominant tag team.
Like, your point about them
which once again doesn't really didn't make sense at the time and doesn't make sense now.
I don't think that had been the case up until this pay-per-view. I think they had been pretty relevant in the story until they won, and then it was all about the Elite. And that worry that we have had about this, and I think that 8-man tag match is one example of it, and I think the booking of this is another example of it. It's going to be hard for these guys to, as they get more talent that's just as good as them into the company, to not fuck it up by making themselves the kind of center of a lot of storylines, because I think you will put fans offside by doing that, even if it's not a conscious decision, and I think, like, to be fair to them, I think they've all been pretty good so far. So it's pretty harsh off the back of one pay-per-view to be like, well, they're they're egomaniacs, but it did, I would definitely say that this was confused booking. Like, the Bucks not getting into the car with Kenny when it was the Bucks who had made the decision to kick Hangman out of the Elite. That was the thing that really, I was like, because they're saying to Kenny, like, let's talk it out, let's talk this thing out. Like, why? And they were in the film promo before the match, talking about how much they wanted FTR to win the match because they hate Hangman now.
It just sucked. Like, I think it's so disappointing that they've been building this for so long, and to do it in such an underwhelming way it's just the last 2 weeks have not been AEW-esque. And like, I know Cody's off working on a TV show. We've been giving TK a lot of big ups, but is Cody the driving creative force? Because something just seems different and wrong.
I would have liked to have heard Dusty say that.
The son of a promo.
His accent would have been great. I can't do it. I'm not going to try and do it, Dusty. I think it'll just offend anyone that we have listening. Anyway, we'll see, man. I still have confidence in everything being put back on track, but maybe it is Cody. If Cody's gone for another couple of weeks and things are... Although I'm pretty sure Cody's back this week by Twitter stuff. Like, he put out another logo and stuff. But anyway... Let's just get through the next couple of matches. Next up, we've got Jericho versus Cassidy 3, the Mimosa Mayhem match. Well, yeah, we might disagree on this one.
The feud of diminishing returns, as I like to call it.
I think the problem for this match is that
I did too.
3, outside of the women's match, it's followed 3 matches where it's like, what the fuck is this booking? What the fuck, by the time, and we're at like 3 hours and 20 minutes by the time these guys come out. Like, it's, it's about 3 hours, sorry. So, people are probably tired, they're confused. I know I was so, anyone listening to this podcast, and Matt, you definitely know this, like, I was really, really looking forward to this match a lot. I love Orange Cassidy. I love Chris Jericho. I mean, I have a fucking list, I have a Chris Jericho list that I paid way too much money for that, like, sits in my bedroom, that I have to explain to people what it is. So I was really, really looking forward to this match. And I really liked the way that the ring was set out. I thought that they didn't go over the top with the use of the mimosa pools, in the sense of, like, I thought they were going to, like, rely on it constantly, and it didn't feel like they overused it. Did they have the greatest match of all time? No. Is Jericho capable of doing that anymore in the ring? I don't think so. But that's not really what this program was about. It was about Chris Jericho through his just skill, like pristine ultimate skill, putting Orange Cassidy over, and that's what this was. This showed that Orange Cassidy can be in a co-main event, probably is how you would describe this match. He didn't embarrass himself. He did really well, and now he's one of the faces of AEW, and Chris Jericho. And not only did he do that, he said in his promo before the match that he's done that, which I loved. Yeah, it's great.
And look, I think like the image
it was
of Jericho
there was payoff, right?
in the Mimosa
this whole
was
time,
fantastic.
All you wanted to see is Orange Cassidy get his own back against Chris Jericho, and see this loudmouth fuckwit of a guy, just like a beached whale bobbing up and down in the Mimosa. I gotta say, Chris looked pretty comfortable in there, to be honest. He didn't look too worried about being in a vat of champagne and orange juice. Yeah.
I think he'd been looking forward to it. Like, I don't need big, long Chris Jericho matches, obviously, at this point, but this was perfectly enjoyable.
There was some moments where
it probably could have been a little bit shorter.
This is teetering
but that's okay.
Not boring, but overstaying its welcome, probably. But the end payoff was worth it, and I've really loved the program. There's been dips and lulls and stuff, but Yeah. Oh, well, we didn't butt heads on that. That's good. No, I don't think I hate this as much as you do, but I
Yes.
don't think either
Well,
of us
maybe
enjoyed
we
this
will
match,
now.
that much. It's the main event. The world champ John Moxley versus the number one contender MJF with Wardlow in his corner. Look, as far as an actual match is concerned, before we get to the finish, I actually enjoyed the match. Like, I actually enjoyed the wrestling in the match more than I thought I would. I liked the story of John popping his shoulder out and not being able to pin MJF. I assume it was probably a played job with MJF with all that blood everywhere. But it looked cool, I think. I liked MJF's ring gear. My big problem is the finish and the booking. And when obviously, John Moxley wasn't allowed to use the paradigm shift, which he did to get the win.
So I think it's fully explaining exactly what happened, where Wardlow throws the ring in, MJF sort of sees it, Moxley sees it, MJF goes to pick it up, Moxley sees that the ref's looking the other way and uses the dirty deeds or whatever the fuck it's called.
Thunder in Paradise.
So the face wins by cheating against the young, inexperienced underdog, physically smaller challenger who doesn't cheat. Would you not have said that maybe like MJF cheating to win might have built MJF up even further as someone who you just want to see get absolutely, planted on their head? Would have kept his win streak going, would have built a new star, and wouldn't have hurt John Moxley at all because he was already constrained by not being able to use his finishing move, and MJF would have cheated. It's just so short-sighted, and I'm like, I really, really hope. Like, MJF was basically off TV for a while and then came back to do this storyline. And AEW are shocking once someone loses their opportunity and their, the build, and then they lose, at keeping that person's momentum up. Like, I hope that on Dynamite we're not going to get MJF berating Wardlow for not doing a good enough job, and then that leading to MJF versus Wardlow. I hope that we're not going to get MJF off TV. Like, this is not good enough. This is exceptionally poor booking. And like, what? And so now we've got John Moxley versus Lance Archer, which, who wants to see that? Like, how is that a hot match? And like, John Moxley is less exciting than MJF. That's the thing that really gets me. Like, they could have ended this show and completely redeemed it if they had have done it not completely maybe, but they could have, like, they had Sammy Guevara losing to Matt Hardy. Obviously what happened in that match was problematic and was an accident. Sammy Guevara is a future star and should have won. They had Lance Archer win the Battle Royal thing. He probably shouldn't have. Sheeta's fine. Sheeta's the future. They had FTR, the guys from WWF, winning the tag team belts. Once again, I'm fine with it, but a year ago, AEW was supposed to be the place where all the people who, this is going to be the Underground Rising. This is the fans show. This is the, we're going to do new things. This is the new generation. This is the future. And instead, they've chosen the less exciting character, the person with no particular storylines, over someone who would be an incredible Ric Flair style champion. Like, it just, like, I was obviously, listeners will know that, I was very comically annoyed about Brian Cage and thought he would have been great and all this kind of stuff. But like the reality is, like, Brian Cage is a big guy who, doesn't really need to win, always going to be a threat, and may not have been ready. Like, he's not vocally as anywhere near MJF. Like, MJF as champion,
the only thing I can
would have been something really,
agree.
really different.
I agree with all that. The only things I can think of, and I haven't spent enough time sort of researching it or anything, is that Mox, because I'm almost 100% sure that Mox is going to be doing some New Japan stuff soon, and whether there has been an agreement between the two companies. I mean, I know there's an agreement for Mox to be able to be in the two companies, but maybe the companies have come together as far as having belts cross across have cross promotional matches, and this is leading to that, and so that's why they've booked John Moxley. I can see that being, like, they've booked that program between Mox and MJF, and then this has come up because it was.
But it still destroys, at least temporarily.
I think MJF will be fine.
Your most exciting young person. Like, wouldn't it have been? Oh, look, yeah, he will be because he's massively talented. But like, you could have. It wouldn't have hurt John Moxley at all. It does hurt MJF. He doesn't have his win streak now. It doesn't. He lost by cheating for something. Like, it's not even a sensical. Like, it's not like he lost because he got his. He lost because John Moxley cheated. And like, they could have had, John Moxley started outside and walked up. Why not have, Wardlow hits him with a bar and he fights off Wardlow and, pushes him down the steps or whatever. And, he's already injured as he comes in. And then, MJF pulls out you and just, build the fact that you've got this guy that people just hate. Like, people love to hate him, but people hate him. People would want to see him get his. And this wasn't that. Like,
that's what I was like when he looked at the camera.
Wacky John who just beat up his lawyer and is now
seething. He's going to be so angry.
It's just crap. Like, it's not good wrestling. It's not like I don't watch it and I'm like, oh wow, man, John Moxley's so cool. It's so cool to see him bully this smaller dude and cheat. Oh, he's such a great, like, it's just crap storytelling. And like, I think John Moxley's better than it. But I don't know why I think that anymore, because I think, like, clearly he has an attraction to just doing shit storylines. He doesn't need to be the champion, even if they're building to New Japan versus AEW, which, is a theoretical thing that you made up. But even if they are, even if they are going to a champion versus champion, like, does it really add that much? Like, John Moxley coming to, like, the Ring of Honor, the New Japan champion could come to AEW and challenge John Moxley, whether he's champion or not. It doesn't matter. Like, they could send MJF to defend the AEW world title in Japan, and like, that would be maybe more exciting. Just trying
to think of a reason,
because cheating in Japan in the Tokyo Dome would be more exciting.
Booked like this, because again, it feels like it was booked on the fly with no forethought of, like, it doesn't, and I'm the fucking face heel guy. Like, like, it annoys me when, I mean, I know, like, someone could just tap me on the shoulder and be like, Hulk Hogan. But like, when who was like the biggest baby face of all time, but constantly did heelish things. But this is, I was the same, man. I was disappointed. I was disappointed that John Moxley. Well, it wasn't so much that John Moxley won; it was how he won.
But also, like, you've got to point out that Hulk Hogan, definitely, like, poked people in the eyes and did back rakes and stuff. But he was always put in against a monster factory. MJF is physically half the size of John Moxley. Like, you cannot build the... Like, if John Moxley couldn't beat him without his dumb fuck shitty DDT, then, like, maybe John Moxley's not very good. Like, that's what I took from that.
The only other thing I can think of is that just leaves the door open for MJF to come back and for them to renew the program, later on down the line this year.
But so now we're going to get MJF just whinging about, oh, John cheated, John couldn't beat me, now I'm going to go, I don't know, he's already wrestled Darby Allin, now I'm going to go wrestle Brody Lee. That's not a storyline, obviously. Now, like, it is hard to see who he goes into a program with that's actually interesting in the current settings. Whereas if he was champion, you could have, been a bit smarter about how you did Hangman and have Hangman ready to, like you could spend 6 months with Hangman constantly being thwarted, but being this big badass who's desperately trying to get at MJF, who, wiggles out at all times.
Yeah, I'm into that. I wanted MJF to win. I thought that was the better booking. I think I said on Wednesday, like, I feel like it's time. John's had like 6 months. He's done everything he possibly could have at this point in AEW. He's the number one wrestler in the world as far as the 500 list is concerned. He's got a championship in Japan to look after as well. Like, and MJF's probably ready. He's had a year and a bit of TV time. He's the best heel on planet Earth. Like, he is better than Randy Orton or whoever else you want to put up at the moment. And, I thought it was time. So, like, I was disappointed. As a fan, I was disappointed with the result. As a pundit, podcaster or whatever, I was bemused by the way it was booked. Because I can always see the company's point of view with these kind of things. Like, oh, well, John Moxley's fucking huge and hot. And you can see that. When he walked out, like, some kid came flying out of the crowd trying to just, like, touch him or grab him or whatever. Like, people love John Moxley, and he is a face that you can put on things and people go, oh, I know that guy. So I get that. And in this uncertain period where there aren't huge crowds or crowds at all, I can understand that, wanting to have John Moxley that they can sell every week as champ. I get that.
But couldn't...
But then the program makes no sense. Like, don't have that program then. Like...
I don't know I don't know who's interesting that beats John Moxley either. Like, if it's not going to be MJF who's a heel, it has to be someone who's, like, are they going to go Kenny John again? Like, I don't, like, that match wasn't that great. I'm not that into, like, Kenny at the moment, certainly not, as champ.
Could be Hangman.
But Hangman's
versus
like,
John Moxley.
Hangman's like in a weird spot now. Like,
maybe this is the beginning of a heel turn for John?
Doesn't seem like it. He's too wacky. Like, what is he going to be? If he's a heel as that character, he's Disco Inferno. Like, he's, it's just. Okay. But I think what I'm saying is obviously that's an extreme example, but he's not a serious character.
Sorry, I'm just imagining John Moxley in Disco Inferno's suit doing the dance.
It's just like they've chosen the least interesting option, and I think that's the sin. And the other one is that, like, had they have had someone interesting win the Battle Royale that you can be like, oh, okay, like Moxley versus this person makes a lot of sense and will be a really hot program. Moxley versus the guy that lost to Cody that, like, rips off old men's shirts and writes on their torsos. Like, I it makes me not want to watch Dynamite as much as I want to know who Kip Sabian's best man is. God,
who doesn't? I mean, that's so
and exciting. As much as I want to see Goldust versus Brody Lee. Like,
Jesus Christ. He doesn't say much about this week's Dynamite either. Although they're usually the Dynamites that are the best ones. I always say that. The ones where the card is like, it's usually the best episodes.
Well, let's hope so, because...
Let's bloody hope so, because this was hard to watch, man. It really was. I mean, besides the announcement of Kip Sabian's best man coming to Dynamite, there wasn't really much that I was... No, I mean, the women's match was good. Cassidy versus Jericho was... I enjoyed that. The cinematic match was okay. Yeah. The rest we've gone in intimate detail as to why we didn't enjoy it. So it's a shame, man, because we're both really looking forward to it. And, at this time on planet Earth, things aren't great. So it's nice to have good wrestling pay-per-views to watch. And, yeah. But anyway, let's hope that Matt Hardy's okay. Let's hope that, Sammy Guevara is okay. And, I hope that, anyway, we'll hope they get back on track.
I hope that I'm okay after this.
I'm a little bit worried about your mental health, man. It'll be okay. Look, you know what? Even if AEW goes to shit, we've always got Nitro to watch, man. And there'll be a Nitro that you can listen to in this feed just before this episode. If you're bummed out, go and listen to an episode about a great Nitro leading into Halloween Havoc. We'll have a Halloween Havoc episode coming up soon. Another Nitro will have Dynamite. If you're still listening to this, I just want to let you guys know that I'm not doing the WWE show anymore because it takes up a lot of time. It makes me very annoyed, and you only get one go on this earth, man. And I don't want to spend it watching hours of wrestling that makes me angry. And also, Vince is the emperor, so I don't want to support that. But yeah, if you can rate and review, tell your friends, you know the drill. Matt and I are tired and emotional, so we're going to log off and go and do something that's not, putting ourselves through this. But we will be back this week, later in this week, with an episode.
And our TNA show, obviously.
Yeah, TNA, NWA, Spot, pay-per-views that are coming up now. Ring of Honor, it's only a matter of time before Ring of Honor's back. We'll have to start doing that as well. Now that I've got extra time, I'll do New Japan as well. I've just got to learn a bit of Japanese, and we'll get that happening. And yeah, I think AEW and WCW is probably enough for the time being.
We'll see how we go.
Yeah, but anyway, until next time, Pepe's dead. No, not saying it with me?